All right, a rule that gets brought up in venting oftentimes is the 7 times rule. And it's one that is brought up more often, and it's oftentimes confused with, I think, sizing of individual vent systems related to the 7 times rule, and it's not really the design of that rule. I want to show you in the code book 5418, and specifically what the rule is. And this specific rule is describes the vertical vent upsizing slash 7 times rule. And in the code book, we specifically are dealing with that particular rule, which is essentially describing where when you have a larger common vent and you have a few appliances that have smaller vent connectors, that the bigger area of that common vent can't exceed the area of the smaller vent by 7 times. So I had put together a little handout to describe what that rule means in a little more detail. So specifically, let's take a look at this particular one. And it says, what exactly is that 7 times rule in regard to the code book? And one of the things is, one of the ways or things to do is to check it for excessive vent area. And what you're really looking at is the larger vent in excess of what is acceptable for that rule. And obviously, up till now, you might have heard me talk once or twice about the issues and the problems that if you have sizing of your vent systems that are in excess, that you're going to have problems getting these appliances to vent correctly, and it's not an easy problem to fix. So, so we're going to take a look at this one. So the vent connector and the common vent, they're generally sized using those tables, your normal 13.2 A and anything in section 13.2 primarily, depending on which table you're dealing with. So, and you have to look at those, follow all the same rules. Yeah, and again, you're generally going to see this more for even like a commercial or light commercial application where you have multiple appliances, even more than 2 in some cases, that are venting into a common chimney or vent system. So in this rule in 13.2.18, it describes the limitation to 7 times the diameter of the smallest connector in that system. So I've got a couple of examples here that I'm going to go through. The first example that I have is described right here. Okay, and in this particular example, it says if you have a water heater that's vented in a 4-inch, it has a 4-inch vent connector. It was the only appliance connected to that venting system. The maximum vented area or vent area could be or would be 7 times the 4-inch area. So in this case, a 4-inch diameter vent has an area of about 12.5 square inches. So the area of the circle in the vent system would generally be pi r squared. Therefore, you multiply pi 3.14, and you're going to get 12.5 square inches. So that 7 times rule would result in 7 times 12.5, or about 88 square inches, which would be the maximum allowed area in the larger common vent. So that being said, if you figure out a 10-inch diameter circle, we'll call that the common vent, would have an area of roughly around 79 square inches. And the largest, so that would be the largest diameter vent system or round vent that could be used with that water heater, assuming you have a 4-inch vent connector on that system. So that's kind of one of those. I think it's in a smaller system, I just don't see this as being a big deal. The rule is a much larger deal if you're dealing with maybe even a multi-level building where you could have multiple appliances going in one common vent system, where you really could have problems with those smaller appliances as mentioned earlier. So for most residential applications, I really don't think this is going to be a problem. So another example I had where I took a 4-inch vent system and I put it into an 8-inch common vent just to prove the math behind things and to give you another look at it. And in this example, we knew that the 4-inch vent system had an area of roughly 12.56 square inches based on the calculation. And if we looked at the 8-inch common vent for these systems, the area is pi r squared, which would be, of course, an area of around roughly 50.25 inches squared. So in this case, that 8-inch round vent that would be accepting the vent products from a 4-inch connector would roughly be 4 times. So in this case, the 50 1/4 divided by the 1256 would have an area of roughly 4 times. So this is well below that. But as you can tell, just like in the previous example up here, you'll notice that we went from an 8-inch to a 10-inch. And look at the incredible difference that made. So just really going up one size makes that big of a deal. And again, I think it's more of an issue you're going to run into in your commercial jobs where you're dealing with several appliances. They're all venting into that. That becomes a bigger deal. And again, it's super difficult to get appliances that have, especially ones that don't have a lot of heat, to generate enough momentum and enough energy to try to get them to vent out of these larger vent systems. So especially without having excessive condensation being a problem. So that was my explanation of what that 7 times rule pertains to.